So something that you guys should all know about me is that I am a huge horror fan when it comes to gaming and movies especially. I absolutely love horror movies. Guys, I went to school for filmmaking. I went to the New York Film Academy for a short-term program that I went over there for, and I got to make a decent amount of movies, and basically every single movie that I made when I was in school was a horror movie. And so horror movies and horror games are something that are very close to my heart personally, and you guys can probably see that with Gears of War. I mean, Gears of War not necessarily is a horror game, but it is, technically speaking, a third-person shooter, but a horror shooter to say the least, and so something that I really enjoy. Well, one of my favorite horror games of all time, guys, is Dead Space. And I never understood why Dead Space stopped after 3 games. Now, I understand to a degree that it's like, this idea of maybe it's a trilogy, but I felt that there was so much more to explore, especially after the 3rd game. And the 3rd game was kind of just such a letdown for me. I just didn't, it was good, but it wasn't as good as I was, hoping for. It kind of went away from the roots of what made Dead Space so good. And I got that this was a franchise and a game that was kind of behind the trends of what was going on in gaming at large, that being multiplayer co-op and things of that nature, which I think really hurt Dead Space. Well, what we're going to talk about is, where is Dead Space 4, guys? Because I think there's a number of reasons why we haven't seen Dead Space 4 yet, but this is another game that I would love to see us as a community try to, get echoed into existence. And that being said, there's an article that was written by the Den of Geek stating Dead Space creator wants to make Dead Space 4. Like many fans of the Dead Space series, Glenn Scofield wants to return to the franchise. This article was written in early 2019. In an interview with Game Informer, Dead Space creator Glenn Scofield revealed that he'd love the chance to make the 4th installment in the series. When asked whether or not that game would be Dead Space 4 or some kind of reboot or altered universe, Scofield elaborated on his wishes. "I would probably do something where I didn't have to follow the lore of the other 2 games," said Scofield. "I thought in the end, when they introduced all the aliens and everything, wow, you didn't need to do that." While the idea of getting permission to rewrite the Dead Space canon might be doable, Scofield addresses the bigger elephant in the room, getting EA to sign off on a sequel. So far as that goes, he admits that realistically getting the game approved will require him to make some concessions. "If you could come up with a multiplayer that would work," Scofield said. "Story modes don't have to be one player. I think that's the key these days. How do we make a story mode for everybody to play? I think Dead Space wouldn't take on a different look, but would take on a slightly different way of playing it." As for what form the game's multiplayer mode would take, Scofield suggests that the obvious answer is some kind of contribution of the co-op mode featured in Dead Space 3. At the same time, he believes a single-player driven game, Dead Space or otherwise, is more viable in the current market than some people may lead you to believe. "Everybody seems to be saying that the single-player story mode is dying, but then you have some giant hits that come out," Scofield said. "You don't have to put $300 million into some of these games. If you put in $50 million and make $250 million or $300 million, I think that would be enough for many players." With that statement, Scofield joins Uncharted director Amy Hennig and other industry figures who think that the current trajectory of video game budgets isn't sustainable and that something is going to have to change in order to avoid further layoffs. As for the possibility of a Dead Space sequel, we are a little pessimistic about the possibility, even if we and many of those who worked on the game have fond memories of the sci-fi horror classic. So, look, guys, Dead Space is a game that I think it suffered from just being behind the trends a little bit, that being multiplayer and co-op. They didn't introduce co-op until Dead Space 3. I thought the Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 were incredible. 2 of the best horror games I've ever played, and very freaky games as well. Dead Space 3, I mean, obviously it was good, but it wasn't as good as the first two. And, I was hoping that it would be, just as good as those, especially when you're talking co-op. But I think that Dead Space really needed to have some form of multiplayer to bring people back. Because sure, when people are stating that that single-player games are dying, that's 100% not true. We look at games like God of War and Spider-Man and other games that are primarily single-player experiences. They're selling a ton of copies. Now, having a full package is what I always look for. I look for a campaign, multiplayer, and like some form of co-op mode or, side mode. Kind of so you're having a full package. You're spending $60 on this product, so you want to have like a full package. You don't just want to play the campaign one time and then that's it, right? You want to be able to kind of go back, play it again, which I have done with the Dead Space games, but at the same time, you want to be able to also play other modes. You want to be able to, play with your friends and also just play multiplayer if that is an option. Dead Space I always felt would be a great game, kind of like Gears of War, where you have like a horde mode or something where you play with your friends and you're just going up against waves and waves of different, creatures and such. I think that would be really cool. But Dead Space 4, guys, I would love to see this game made. I think that, EA needs to give Dead Space another chance, but this time, obviously making it a full package, I think is really something that is important. Having a campaign that's, strong but goes back to the roots of Dead Space. And then, of course, having a multiplayer and even some co-op modes would be really helpful as well. But what do you guys think? Would you guys want to see another Dead Space game made? I certainly would. I'm all in on a Dead Space 4. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below.